Topic is the evolution of the student, and we started from the 1600s, and the first topic was rich versus poor, and I did how the upper class children had a better opportunity in education, and how the poorer children had to basically work while the upper class children got their education. So one of the bullet points were upper class children attended top-notch grammar schools or received homeschooling. Poorer children didn't go to school; they had to start work from 6 to 7. The wealthy were able to become educated by the age of 11 and then sent off to college. And then in 1601, the Poor Law was enacted, and that basically was for poor children to receive an education in the form of apprenticeship, which was a system of on-the-job training which was based on ancient and medieval practices. And this is just a picture of the poor and wealthy children, how they were taught. In this picture, it was basically like in a wooden house, and like the children had to sit on the floor, compared to this picture where the students were in the classroom. It's much bigger. Some of the advances in education was first in 1700, and it was with the invention of the printing press. Jobs opened up. It made it a bigger demand for schools. Private academies were being built. Also, the first incorporated academy was Benjamin Franklin charter school in Pennsylvania in 1753, which were only offered to upper class students. And while the upper class students were in class, some of the poor children, they stole, they destroyed property, and some reformers felt that education would make a difference and make them better citizens. In the 1800s, most states had accepted 3 basic principles of education, and that basically was that schools should be free and supported by taxes, that teachers should be trained, and that children should be required to attend school. So that was one of the biggest changes. And then in the 1900s, schools began to improve. Over 15 million attended public schools. Some other advances were in the 1920s. There were already more students attending secondary schools in some American cities than in European nations. Over the course of a century, attending school became an integral part of growing. So that was like if you didn't go to school, you basically didn't succeed in life, like now. The Higher Education Act of 1965 was enacted, and that basically authorized most federal student financial aid programs, including the Educational Opportunity Grant Program and the Guaranteed Student Loan Program. So that's like basically what we have now, like the financial packages we receive if you're eligible. The Higher Education Amendments of 1992, that basically was that FAFSA was free to fill out, and you didn't have to pay to fill out the application. In 2007, the Department of Education announced that it would be eliminating mass distribution of paper FAFSAs. So you know how we do it electronically now. And then today, last year, 2012, education is provided to all students of all income. This is just a chart based on like how education can play a role in the income you received. So as you can see, like you drop out of high school, like the most you can make is like $500. And like if you receive a college degree, the most you can make is $47,000.
All right, education, boys versus girls. Oh, how are you reading that?
Just tap somewhere else. There you go.
Education, boys versus girls. In the 1600s and 1700s, the boys had to go to school, and females obviously couldn't go to school. They were not educated beyond what their parents taught them at home, but what their mothers taught them at home, sorry. But their mothers weren't educated either, so they obviously didn't have a good education. Men and boys needed education, and women did not. Well, that's what they believed because the men worked, so they needed it, and the girls didn't. In the 1800s, women began to protest the gender disparity in education. girls began going to school, and girls were still inferior to boys because the boys had the education and they were strong according to their terms, and the girls were weak.
The Emma Warlick School, that basically was a school that opened in 1814 for all females, and it was a woman who started it by Emma Hart Willard. It provided young women with the same higher education as males, their male peers.
In the 1900s, women were finally becoming equal. The women's suffrage movement changed a lot for women because they started to become more equal. It stated that all men and women are equal. They were pushing for equal rights for everything. Title IX was also passed in the 1900s. In 1972, Title IX was passed, and this revolutionized things because the amendment protected people from being discriminated upon based on their gender and education. Equal funds in sports, activities, and anything in education was funded by federal finances. The chart down here, which you can't see because the smart board kind of minimized it, but it showed from, I forgot what year it started in, but I know it ended in 2000s. After the bill was passed, a lot of over on the side was females, that side was male athletes. At the end, it evens up to where there's 150,000 in each bar. Girls and boys are equally educated, and girls and boys can participate in school activities equally now. All right, Plato and Aristotle. Plato believed that children are not talented genetically, so they weren't passed down through genes. Your parents can't give you what you take in. He believed boys and girls should receive the same education. He also believed that they should be educated to work for the state, and he had a strong military belief that after school you should go to 2 years of military school, and 20s you should enroll in the military. Boys and girls should have the same education, where Aristotle believed human nature, habit, and reason had a big part in education, and he wanted to educate people to be better citizens. He believed in repetition, where teachers would repeat things, and that's how students would learn. Today's ethnic makeup of students, from 1980 to 2012, the white population in schools declined from 80% of the population to 66%. The Hispanic population increased from 6 to 17%. The African Americans stayed roughly the same from that year to now. And the Asian population went from 2% to 4%. The United States changed from almost all whites to other races coming into schools. There are 49.9% minority in schools now. And the classrooms are a lot more diverse than they were 20 years ago. The picture on the right is a picture from 1980, where there's all white students, and the picture on the left is where you can see the more diverse, it's a more updated picture. And that's our reference pages. That's it.